What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Chillporeal, and tonight I have the one, the only Matt, the UNBEARABLE73, the Thad that shouldn't be. What's up? Thanks for joining me.
I'll give you double Vulcan hand salutes for that, brother.
We used to, we used to say in school, because I was a Star Trek fan when I was a kid. Everyone would say to me, "Die short and fail." And now you think about it, like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Man, I don't know. I almost thought you customized the opening to me because you got quite a few of my fandoms in there.
That's every Chillporeal. I every stream is tailored for the guests. So the intro is tailored for you, and the discussion. Like I'm not going to discuss, like, for instance, Aldan. I'm not going to discuss Star Trek with Aldan. If I have Aldan on in the future, we'll be talking Wheel of Time and probably fantasy, and he'll probably recommend some what do you call it? Some Cosmere. So,
in case I let something slip by accident, where are you in Wheel of Time? So I don't.
Okay, where am I in Wheel of Time? Well, I just I am reading with words with my eyes. I'm on chapter 16, which it's called Leave Takings, but I call it bickering, because that's all that chapter is bickering, whether it's between Perrin and Fail or Lan and Nynaeve. So and chapter 17 I was listening to earlier today. So I'm not done with it, but I got done with the Tom portion of that chapter, and the Tom portion of that chapter was awesome. It was him squaring off against Moraine. Like they're talking. They're talking a little bit of the Deus Damar. He's like saying, "I know who you are. You're from House Damager," and she's like, "I know the Red Aja that did that thing to your nephew," and that just got under his skin. And I'm just like, "Oh, I want to see more. I want to see more of Tom." And then it cuts to Min. I'm like, "Oh, Min. Oh well."
So you're book 4, basically.
Yeah. So I got past the Dane really oversold the chapter with the Aelfin. So I met the Aelfin, the snake people, and he asked like 3 questions. And what's funny was I was like, it was a good setting up. It was setting up a whole bunch of stuff, and apparently there's going to be more to that in the book. So
there's like Jordan has a lot in Wheel of Time. Like I say this to people a lot of times. Like Tolkien has a lot in the Legendarium, but there's really only 2 published books. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Jordan has a lot in the Wheel of Time that he published, right?
Yeah.
And or had co-published, like some of the books. Like hold on a second, I have one of them right next to me.
By the way, before we go any further, chat. What's up, chat? Aldan is here. LPK is here, and Jacob Ironside. What's up, guys? Thanks for being here.
Hey, look at that. You have fans, my friend.
Oh, but they're here for you, Matt. They're here for you, not for me. They're here for you.
Like I was saying, there's so much in Wheel of Time. Like there's enough for everyone to love and everyone to hate. Like, there's a character you haven't met yet called Cadsuan.
Cadswain?
Well, Cadsuan, yeah. How do you want to pronounce it? I mean,
I've heard enough about her. She's supposed to be the oldest Aes Sedai.
It
shows up much later.
Are you okay with me saying it?
Sure.
Yeah, she's the oldest Aes Sedai. She shows up later. When I first saw, I was like, "Is this Moraine 2.0? Is that what we're getting here?" It's like first thought. And from literally the second paragraph of her, I couldn't stand her presence in the book.
Really?
Like I call it ocular sandpaper. Whenever she would appear in the book, it would feel like someone was rubbing sandpapers in my eyes.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, but everyone has it. The character you absolutely hate. And I don't mean hate in a way like you're supposed to hate the bad guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean like this character. There's so much. There's like over 2,000 characters he put into this, and like it's that's one of the ways it's amazing. Like, but I think some of the characters like Cadsuan and the Sonchan, who I think you've met already.
Sonchan? Yeah.
I don't really like them at all. Yeah. I don't like them at all, but I think had Jordan actually finished his books, and I would be in a better place with them mentally than with what Sanderson did.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about? Now I know a lot of people. I know some people were okay with Sanderson. Some people didn't really like what Sanderson did.
Well, okay. So I'm happy that Jordan allowed the work to be finished. Say that up front. Okay. Um, a lot of authors, like Martin, said they'll finish over his dead body, literally. Like, it's in his will
Didn't
never.
Jordan also say that when he was healthy, when he was too?
Well, but he changed his mind. I mean, near the end,
Yeah.
he was like, I want this finished. This is great work. He wants it done, and I was
Yeah.
cool with that. But that being said, and I respect Brandon Sanderson as an author, though I'd only tried one of his books. I never got into something of his writing style. One of his books outside of the Wheel of Time, I should say. His writing style doesn't appeal to me for some reason. So when I read his 3 at the end, I was like, compared to how Jordan evolved things, and I'm a Robert Jordan fan, not a Wheel of Time fan, I should say. I read his stuff like his Conan novels. Outside of Robert E. Howard's Conan books, right?
Yeah.
Jordan's the best.
Okay.
His Conan, my favorite Conan story is literally Conan the Victorious by him. It's one of his eight or 7 Conan novels. And
is this style very different from Robert E. Howard's? I've never read Robert E. Howard.
I don't know how to describe that. Like, other than to say, Howard is like Lovecraft, like like if you read a lot of the pulp writers of the time, like Doc Savage and all. If you know Doc Savage is.
I don't think so. No.
So, you know who Indiana Jones is, right?
Indiana Jones, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Spielberg was a big fan of what we call the pulp era writing, which included Howard, included Lovecraft, included Tarzan, Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah, same guy that wrote Princess of Mars.
Yeah,
and John Carter. Okay.
But there were other stories from that time, like The Shadow, for example.
Yeah.
Doc Savage.
Yeah.
And a little after you get Remo Williams the Destroyer, there was an 80s movie called Remo Williams Adventure Begins.
What was it called again? I'm gonna write this shit down. Excuse me.
So
Remo Williams.
Remo Williams.
I spell it R-I-M-I.
Remo.
Remo. R-E-M-O.
Williams.
Remo Williams.
And the character's called the Destroyer. And there are probably 200 novels by now because they continue writing them.
Even long after the author passed.
It's like how they're still writing James Bond novels, and he's dead.
And I think they're still writing. I mean, they're still writing Lupin the Third. If you're familiar with anime,
yeah,
Lupin the Third and Gogol 13 are two stories, two mangas that are still going after the original creator passed away. So
we'll get to that Gogol 13 as we talk anime, because that's a very based.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But Doc Savage is the one I recommend most of the pulp writers you've never heard of.
So is Doc Savage a story or is that an author?
Doc Savage is the story. Let me get the author's name correct.
Doc Savage.
My memory isn't perfect anymore, unfortunately.
You probably forgot way more than I've consumed, so you know what? I'll forgive that.
Well, funny enough, Henry. Okay, they say the name I remember was Lester Dent. So they say created by Henry Ralston, John Nanovic, and Lester Dent, right? And he was it was in Doc Savage magazine, right?
Yeah.
I want to share the wiki page because this picture is so. I love the cover image that they show of this.
Okay, yeah, definitely share it.
So let me get share. We're testing thorium's ability now, guys. It's a live test.
Testing thorium.
Don't show these tips again. Window, thorium tab. Window, where are we? There we are. Okay. Tell me how that renders.
All right, let's see.
Look at that cover of that magazine. Look at the artwork.
Wow.
I'm gonna I'll zoom in on it so we can see a bigger picture, I guess. But
that looks really good. Wow.
I mean, and that's the pulp era of artwork. I love that sort of like styling and whatever.
Yeah.
But Doc Savage, the man of bronze, because he had a bronze tan and whatever. And he's kind of some of Gary Stu in a sense. He knows every martial art on the earth. He's a master of multiple sciences. You ever see The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai?
Actually, I haven't. I know of it. It's an 80s movie. I know Peter Weller's in it, but yeah. I actually have not seen it.
It's a fun watch, especially if you know who the pulp era heroes are. They were all like if you ever read any Tarzan novels, Tarzan teaches himself multiple languages, eventually teaches himself science and engineering and all sorts of crazy stuff. All these pulp heroes era, they all could like teach themselves anything, masters of like they all get like a whole Gary Stu era, and it was fun. It was tongue in cheek though. It wasn't like over the top. It was fun. That you would they were having fun writing these stories, you know. And well, anyway, Doc Savage. There's a movie in the '70s called Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, starring Ron.
Doc
He played,
Savage, the Man of Bronze. Let me
yeah,
see.
and the actor who played him in there, Ron something or other, he played Tarzan, and I used to be a gigantic Tarzan film.
I don't think I've ever seen any Tarzan film.
So this is
I've seen a George of the Jungle film.
yeah. So this is the cover of the Doc Savage. This is for the movie, right?
So Doc Savage is basically what this is, like an action adventure story.
Yeah, action adventure. The pulp heroes go on like adventures, finding all the strange and lost cities, and defeat the evil plots of the enemy to attacking the country, and or and they're crazy plots, like the World War II era pulp heroes, like Indiana Jones, the World War II pulp hero. Like,
yeah.
Well, remember the plot of the evil World War II German socialists was to get the Ark of the Covenant and blast people with it. That was the actual plot. For people who don't know this, in the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant is a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes, it is.
The ancient Hebrews would go around with aiming at cities that wouldn't surrender and blow them apart.
Yep, that's right.
That's the reason why the World War II German socialists wanted the Ark of the Covenant.
That makes perfect sense. Not because
they were particularly religious, you know.
Yeah, and I think if according to legend, it got lost during the Babylon or something, Babylon invasion or something.
So
the raiding the temple, the Solomon's temple.
This is what I'm dimly recalling from what the Jesuits taught me in high school. So the last known like historical record of the Ark of the Covenant was during the first temple, before it was conquered and burnt down. They thought the Babylonians took it back to Babylon. There's some indication it may have been there, right? But then I think Babylon was sacked or something like that. And the thought is it might have got it melted down there. But then there were rumors it came back to the second temple, right? But there's only rumors. Then there are also the chain of rumors that say it's in Ethiopia today because Ethiopians claim to have it. Yeah.
That'd be funny if that was true.
Well, there is a temple in Ethiopia where only one guy is allowed to go in. He's like a monk or something. When he dies, they appoint another monk because he says the Ark is in there and will kill anyone who's not prepared for it. It's like charged, you know.
Okay.
So now that's not I'm just saying that's the lore, so to speak. I'm not saying it's a fact. But
I know.
The historical fact the Jesuits taught was that the last known location was removed when the first temple was sacked, and there was some indication it could have survived the Babylon, but they don't think it did. You know, so. And don't cite me as a historical expert, people. Listen, I'm telling you just what I remember being told.
This is just fun, everybody. This is just fun. So
just for fun.
Okay, that makes sense. So all right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the point of the day is that these pulp era heroes would fight all these strange plots and adventures in lost cities and lost civilizations, you know. And we were talking about Robert E. Howard. Howard had, I have a couple of like. This is his medieval pulp style hero, Solomon Kane.
Solomon Kane. Write that down.
There's a good movie that unfortunately didn't get play here with James Purefoy playing Solomon Kane.
Oh, really?
It was very big in Europe, but for some reason, over here, it just didn't get publicized or whatever. You know who James Purefoy is, right?
I think so. I've heard the name before.
From Rome.
Yeah.
Or another great James Purefoy movie, if any medieval fan want, is called Ironclad.
Ironclad.
Yeah. It's a great. It has a medieval fighting, kind of knights versus northern Vikings type of stuff. But it's a really good movie.
Ironclad. I haven't seen these.
Or I got two more Robert E. Howard books right next to me. This is his Cull stories.
Oh, he did Cull too? He did Cull the Conqueror?
Well, he did Cull first. It didn't sell, and he merged Cull and some elements of this character, Brack Ban Morn, into eventually what became Conan.
Oh, okay.
Technically, Conan is a descendant of Cull after the Atlanteans de-evolved into these giant mountain apes and then re-evolved into Sumerians.
So they're in the same universe then?
Yes. Almost all. Robert E. Howard, like Lovecraft, wrote an open universe.
Okay.
So that everything he did occurred in the same space-time continuum.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Conan the Barbarian. Was that a direct adaptation of one of Howard's novels, or was it like an
No.
amalgamation, or was it what was it?
No.
based
So
off of?
it's I believe it's based on something that maybe Sprague Camp wrote or one of the other Conan. Uh, the movie itself is its own story. I think the elements of it are taken some from Robert E. Howard stuff
Yeah.
and some from stuff other Conan writers write. I have to dive back into it. Although, just the one thing is, that's the greatest movie score of all time, in my opinion. Conan the Barbarian.
Who did the movie score for
Papa, he's a Greek guy. Basil
Vangelis?
Papadopoulos. Basil. Well, we have Wikipedia right in front of us.
There's Greek. When I think Greek, I think there's Vangelis, who did Chariots of Fire and Blade Runner.
Where media? They call it Momoa as Conan.
Yeah.
I know. Although I have something positive to say about that film in a second, but let's.
I have not seen
so John Milius, score, music. Basil Polidorus.
Oh, okay.
You know this guy's music. I mean, he's done so much. He's one of the great. Him, John L. Williams, Inicio Morricone. The great. Look like he did Red Dawn.
Oh, he did Red Dawn. Yep. Okay, so he's worked extensively with Milius, because I know Milius directed Red Dawn too.
Yep. Hunt for Red October. You know, I mean, if you look at his works, it's just incredible. And people don't know enough about these. Like, everyone knows John L. Williams, but not enough people know about the other guys who wrote. There were these 4 or 5 great composers who did all these scores from like late 1960s through like the early 2000s.
Yeah,
you know, it's just amazing. Before I forget, in the Jason Momoa Conan film, okay,
was that a film or was that a series? I thought he did a series. It was a movie.
The opening with young Conan steals the show for the entire movie. That kid plays Conan book accurate, and the opening of how Conan would act in the circumstances and how the life in his village depicted, book accurate. Like that opening 15-minute sequence with young Conan is the best Conan that's been on screen of any Conan ever.
Even better than the beginning of Conan the Barbarian.
Yes.
See, okay.
Conan in the Robert E. Howard stories, he wasn't kidnapped from his village and enslaved like that. What happened was he got a wanderlust and he left on his own. Like he started exploring more and more around. Like, there's a great story, in fact, when he starts exploring. It's called The Frost Giant's Daughter.
Yeah.
Which one of the best Conan novel stories, I guess you would say. Because Howard only wrote one Conan novel. I think it was called Red Heat. No, not Red Heat. Red something. Anyway, that's the only full-length novel he wrote. Everything else was like short stories and novellas and all that.
Yeah.
And eventually Conan wandered away from Samaria and his village, and that's how he started exploring the world. And he was young; he was like a teenager, you know. Mm-hmm. And eventually he does. Eventually, he does get enslaved. He becomes a general.
I forget. Does Conan take place? Conan takes place in an alternate world, like kind of like Lord of the Rings. It doesn't take place in our world, or does it?
Well,
I forget.
Well, not an alternate world. Like Lord of the Rings takes place in a fictional version of our world. Between ice ages, right? Well, the Hyborian Age is the same type of thing. So it's a fictional past of the real world Earth.
Okay.
Between a couple of ice ages, you know, like at the beginning of Conan, or it says between what's the reading? Between the sinking of Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius. Do you remember the opening to the Conan films?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that sort of thing. Like there was a lost age called the Hyborian Age, in Robert E. Howard's structure that occurred roughly around the same time the Lord of the Rings occurred.
Okay.
Well, depending on the timeline, I don't want to quibble and be ultra crazy about this, but like between one of the last couple of ice ages, the glacial expansions, and the glacial expansions erased all record of it, like it did for Lord of the Rings. You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
makes sense.
And that was a common sort of thing, like the creation of lost worlds, and Lovecraft did that too with all his stuff. All the lost cities and forgotten civilizations. And although it's kind of funny, truth is stranger than fiction. They previously thought the oldest civilizations were like in Egypt and Babylon and all that. Yeah. And then they found Göbekli Tepe, which is 11,000 years old.
Huh.
So, which is a gigantic megalithic structure like bigger than cities that came after it. And then for some reason, it was buried by its creators, not just by accident. They're literally buried by its creators. If you go look at videos of it, you can see them unearthing it slowly. It's like under protective.
What's it called again?
Uh, Göbekli Tepe. Yeah. I gotta get the spelling is gonna maul me.
Göbekli Tepe.
Gobbe. I gotta find it. Let me get the proper spelling because it's gonna. Göbekli Tepe. Gobekli.
Gobekli
space
space
Tepe.
Tepe. Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's in Turkey. It's the oldest known human settlement
in Turkey. All right, I'll keep that in mind.
And there's another one they found, I think 7,000 or 8,000. One more, like from 7,000 or 8,000 BC. They found that Turkey appears to be like a lot of a very old area, but I don't remember the name of the other one. But in any case, the point is, it's truth is stranger than fiction. Now we're finding these ancient cities, So what are we going to find? It's like, I'm not saying all that crazy stuff is real, that there were, super civilizations or whatever. But I think it's patently obvious that if civilization could arise in 6,000 or 7,000 years to the point we are now, right?
Yeah.
If humans have been here for a couple 100,000 years, there have probably been some civilizations in the past that at least got to the medieval level,
Yeah. So, and of course, there's a lot of shit we don't know.
Well, there's that super volcano Toba, which is Indonesia area. When it erupted, it's the only super volcanic eruption in our human species lifetime.
Yeah.
And when it erupted, it's estimated it killed all but a couple thousand humans.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
You said this was in the Indonesia area?
I think it's in the Indonesian area. I know it's not our side, but it's in that Indian Ocean type of thing.
And this was when the world was still like this. When
it erupted 74,000 years ago, approximately.
So was Indonesia like in the similar state that it is now? Island based, or was it? Was there a shift in
oceanic levels would depend on whether there's a glacial expansion or not. When the glaciers come way out, the ocean level drops quite a bit. Although the water gets sucked up into the ice mass.
I see.
Yeah, like our continental shelves. If you've ever seen a map where they show the continental shelves, if you have the coast of say North America where the continental shelves go out like another mile or so, a lot of those continental shelves, when the ice had expanded on a bigger, were above water. And they're finding cities down on those continental shelves, towns and whatever.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and when the waters came back, obviously they got buried, so drowned or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of fascinating stuff in that area. Like, I'm just looking at chat see if anyone had any questions or whatever. It's way on the other 42-inch monitor. But
you're getting compliments. LPK says, "Swear, man has the best takes in the White Cloaks Discord," and then Aldan's like, "Well, certainly the funniest."
Yeah, I'm pretty base, so yeah. I used to be based, unbiased base hater, Matt, in because of my something I got accused of with Wheel of Prime. Someone's called me and you're just a based hater. You hate Wheel of Prime because so and so is black or whatever. Someone tweeted that at me, and I'm like, I am a based hater, so I'm biased based hater, Matt. What's up?
Okay, there you go. So I got a question. So I got a question for you. Like, you've probably forgotten more than I've ever gotten into. So I just have to ask, what was one of the earliest things that you really got into when you were younger?
Oh God. Okay. I will share with you a touching story of it. But I will keep it clean not the negative stuff. You know what I mean? I had a very troubled youth. There was abuses and whatever, right?
Okay.
And one of the ways they would punish me was, they locked me in this one room, and eventually, but and they did it because I was very hyperactive. I needed interaction. I was always looking to do stuff, and I'd already been reading like adult level books by the time I was like 4 years old. My grandmother, who, if you ever watch my background on my videos, is a woman in the bottom right corner. She primarily how she had taught me how to read and do math by the time I was 3 or 4 years old. You know,
Really?
and she was really smart too. She just never got the opportunity, I guess, back the way it was back then. Not saying anti-woman, but she went right to be a housewife and a mother and all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
um, but anyway, so I got locked in this room, and after eventually I started looking around because I couldn't sit still and just sit there and whatever. And there was this one bookshelf way high up, and had about 15 or 20 paperbacks on it. And the first one I pulled down was The Fellowship of the Ring. And on that shelf was The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Dune. I think Dune Messiah was there, but I don't remember. I don't remember reading that one until a year or two later. Two HP, two not HP, two H.G. Wells books, War of the Worlds, and either Time Machine or Invisible Man. Dune. There's a couple other things up there that were in the science fiction fantasy. Dracula, I think, was up there. But
Bram
anyway,
Stoker.
yeah. So anyway, I read while I was stuck in my room. I read The Fellowship of the Ring. I read the whole Lord of the Rings a couple times over the course of those punishments, and I took all those books with me back to my room because they were just gathering dust. No one,
No one was reading them.
yeah.
How
So
old were you?
between 4 and 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you said you learned how to read when you were.
I was reading like I was done with little kid style books, where there's like 5 words on the page, and
Yeah.
Johnny went to see the crocodile at the zoo.
Yeah.
I was done with those type of books by the time I was 2. So anyway, but obviously I had to use a dictionary to look up words I didn't know or whatever. You know what I mean? But in terms of the ability to read stuff, and do like I was doing like multiplication and division before I entered kindergarten.
Yeah.
My grandmother was very hardcore about that stuff. She taught all my family tends to be higher intellectual capacity, but most of them did nothing with it.
Yeah.
But she was very hardcore about learning stuff. Learning is your key to anything.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I literally slept with Lord of the Rings in my bed until I was probably 16 or 17. It was always my go-to thing if I was depressed or whatever. I just open to a random page and start reading it. That's why when I say I've read over 150 times, I'm not joking. I literally slept within my bed for so long. And there's always like there's right behind me. It's right behind me now. I have a copy on my phone. I have a copy. I have another copy of the books in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first fandom. Like it was something about Tolkien's work. Like
They really spoke to you. They really.
Well, it said that you could triumph over evil. And the victory wasn't in that you'd smash the evil's brains in or whatever. The victory is that you would survive and grow. That the evil would be, you could stop the evil. And when I got into more of Tolkien's work, like with the Legendarium, time and time again, they would resist. The evil would come, it would emerge, but they would resist it, push it back, and keep on going. And when you're a little kid struggling, that's more of a message of positivity to me than just you can beat the bad guys and live happily ever after. Stories like that to me always seemed, they could be fun to read, Princess Bride or whatever, or watch. The Princess Bride movie is way better than the book.
Okay.
I'm not saying the book is bad. I'm just saying the movie's way better.
Okay.
It's a rare case of a movie being better than a book to me. Almost every time, the book is better than the movie or TV show. But like I said, I'm saying as an example of someplace where you happily ever after happens. Those endings to me tend not to be as satisfactory. The ending to me, I want to be known that you've survived, you're growing, you're capable of dealing with the next crisis that comes along. That's kind of what I like.
And that's what Lord of the Rings did. Like it didn't just end the moment Frodo drops the ring, and then they have this little epilogue after that. I mean, there's several chapters where we see the consequences, and for all the crap that the Scouring of the Shire gets. And I've said this. I mean, you've watched the White Cloaks, and when I was on the White Cloaks with them, first thing I said was this chapter really shows how much they've changed coming back home compared to when they left. And
that was very out of Tolkien's own experiences going home, how things had changed due to the effects of the war.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he had to scour, England or whatever, but
I gotta ask you, you've seen the Tolkien movie, right?
Which one?
The one that came out a few years ago.
Probably not. I'll go look for it. I've read one of his biographies. I'm not a big fan of biographical stuff only because I very few of them. I got jaded. I read a bunch of I read biography a lot when I was a kid, and then I learned that a lot of them, even the ones that are authorized, are bullcrap.
So
So I
a lot
became
of exaggeration, a lot of
exaggerations, omissions.
yeah.
So I just became very like I'll like if the author himself writes it, I'll kind of read it.
So
Which
if
is
you'll read an autobiography,
yeah. Also, not like it. I like Tolkien's letters. You learn more about him from his letters than anything that was written by him. You know,
are
um,
all of his letters are published, right?
well, there's a book called Letters, which has most of them. I think there's another set of them that were in one of the university's hands but had not been published. Um, and I'd have to look. I thought there were definitely one set that hadn't been in that book called Letters, but that maybe would be in History of Middle Earth to some extent. Um, I'd have to look up. And I want to say there's a couple other letters he wrote that he didn't have or Christopher didn't have that have come out that other people have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, well, so so I was gonna ask like Lord of the Rings, but that what's funny is speaking of Lord of the Rings, that was the first thing that you and I did together. We
yeah.
covered the movies, and really knew you really knew the lore. You knew the lore better than anybody else. I mean, you were able to pull right away like the differences between what happened in the Two Towers versus what happened
Well,
in the movie, like especially like where the war was at and all that.
I this is a bit of unbiased based hater Matt coming back to the fore here. I respect Peter Jackson's work. I appreciate the effort. I really like the theatrical editions. Okay. The extended editions to me, the things I can overlook in the 2 hour movie, so to speak,
Yeah.
become much more prominent in the extended editions. To this day, the only time I've watched the Return of the King extended edition in full is when I was prepping for it to watch with your show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I still
uh,
haven't done. I still haven't
yeah.
done
Because
Return
you
of the
said you were
King.
going to do it, so I said, okay, I finally have to watch this stupid movie because you know because it's again the things like the breaker the things that I like the army of the undead being used the way it was like a piranha like army.
Yeah, that because if I remember correctly, and you can correct. I mean, we've already had this conversation.
Yeah.
That army didn't kill anybody, right? They just scared the people off the ships. Is that what happens in the book? And
Um,
that's why when they arrive on the ships, there's nobody. You know.
he takes so there's the army of Southern Gondor, which is the bigger of the two. The army of Northern Gondor have been
Yeah.
defending with Faramir and Boromir have been leading and defending against the constant push towards Gilead and from the north and all that, right?
Yeah,
So
and you had that one prince. There was that one prince that was
Imrahil
Imrahil.
Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was the army of Southern Gondor, which was defending the coast against the Black Numenorians, the Umbarians, and other pirates and whatever. And um, they got locked in a sense, under siege from the forces led by the Black Numenorians, right?
Yeah.
So Aragorn took the army of the undead and broke the siege of Southern Gondor, right? Now, my memory tells me they more scared people. I think there's an illusion of some fighting. I don't think it was piranha-like army of the undead
No.
disintegrating people like nanosect swarms or whatever.
Do you I have a question for you. This is going to probably sound dumb, but do you think that maybe Peter Jackson read The Great Hunt and kind of came up with that idea where the heroes of the Horn come and just drive back the Sean Chan? Do you think they used that?
No,
I was thinking of that when I was thinking of Lord of the Ring. I was thinking Return of the King, that ghost part when I was reading The Great Hunt.
I think he saw what they did with the army. I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm just trying to remember what I remember because I watched a couple of Jackson interviews. I have a compliment about something he did that a lot of people hate, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I'm trying to remember I don't remember all of his comments about everything. Army of the Undead thing, he said something like he had to convey visually what happened with that army, and he decided pretty much not to include the extended war going on around um like for example the army of elves that go to uh brainlock uh the vice squad Wings Hauser I don't remember it. Um,
I watched this movie on Nas's recommendation a few weeks ago.
yeah.
This movie is batshit crazy. Like it's just like you have the most over the top villain who just does all these over the top things, and you have the dumbest police department ever, and then you have Season Hubley playing a hero hooker,
Oh, God.
and
Oh,
that's basically what it is. It's a 1982 movie. It's ridiculous.
yeah. It sounds like one of those erotica films from back then.
It's a comedy. It's a freaking comedy. Like there's it's like an episodic, like it's the adventures of Season Hubley, the hooker in this big city who is also at the same time being hunted by this Wings Hauser guy. And there's an episode. There's a point in the movie where she's led to this funeral home just to have this old creepy old guy jump out of a casket and scare her to death almost. It was like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. God,
So
I'll have to go look for it. But what I was saying before, so when they sent the army of elves to the Hornburg, which is Helm's Deep, the fortress in
yeah,
Helm's Deep is called the Hornburg. Okay, my brain kept blocking on Hornburg, but not everyone's gonna know that. So I'm trying to remember Helm's Deep. Anyway, the reason he did that was because what the elves in Lothlorien were actually doing was fighting the forces of Sauron that were at Dol Guldur, right?
yeah,
Which
that's
is
right.
what basically Celeborn was leading the forces, and eventually Galadriel came along after they took conquer the tower, and she ripped the tower apart with her mind and ripped the roots out. And it's a really cool kind of paragraph in the appendices. But he couldn't portray the war, so he said, "Well, the question wasn't going to say what happens with the elves, what happens with the army, and all that." So that's why he put those scenes in to give you
Okay.
to make them something happen with them,
Yeah.
Anyway, there were just scenes like that really kind of took me out of it, but I could with the 2 hour films, I could be like, okay, I could just move on. The 4 hour version is kind of like I was like, oh, Yeah. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing, Jackson, he made this point in an interview, and I didn't realize until he said it. Right? Do you remember how they said Peter Jackson wanted Aragorn to fight Sauron at the end?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well,
And then they changed it to a
the
troll.
mouth of Sauron. No, the mouth of Sauron, then a troll.
Yeah.
Jackson was right, and here's why he was right. Jackson thought that it would, and I think Tolkien might have agreed here. It would have been poetic justice if at the end of the Third Age, just like at the end of the Second Age, so when Sauron came down, smite his way through the army and lost with the ring. If he's there fighting, about to kill Aragorn and all of them on the field of battle, and all of a sudden the ring gets destroyed and he loses the same way, but in a permanent way. There was
Yeah.
poetic justice there, and
Mhm.
I think Tolkien would have appreciated that. Now, as long as they didn't depict an actual battle, just Sauron coming up and all that, I could have lived with that. Because of the way he explained it. But like I said, there was still there. But don't. I mean, if you're not as big a fan of the books, the extended versions, I can see why people love them. But to me, those kind of not in the book stuff, or like the Denethor, like the movie destroys Denethor's character in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because like
And
Denethor is supposed to be like really like even Gandalf is like some like even like takes caution when addressing him or when having or when talking to him like because he has this I forget how they described it in Return of the King. Like he's just I forgot how they I can't even remember how it was properly described, but he was.
No, I know what you mean. He's a man of great character who is worn down by by the experiences, and in particular by like
And it's because he's been looking at the Palantir that
because he confronted Sauron in the Palantir,
and he didn't. Nothing happened to it, if I remember correctly.
Well,
like if you could confront Sauron like the way I think was it Pippin did.
Pippin got pulled out before Sauron could mentally mess with him.
Yeah.
Plus, hobbits are very robust. So the way the Palantiri work, they were given by the elves to Elendil's father. Okay, Melendil, something like that. When they were in Andui, the Lords of the Andui, they were the last humans ordained in Numenor loyal to the elves and the Valar, and right, and they were being persecuted. So they gave them the Palantiri so they could communicate with the elves on Tolaricia, which is the island off the coast of Valinor, which because the elves weren't really able to get to Numenor anymore, and so they could help pass information and spy on the enemy and all that. So they were bound to the line of Elendil, right?
Yeah.
And the kings. So there's a special dispensation that only the kings can authorize proper use of them, and if you can't properly use them, they either won't work or you'll get messed up, right?
Yeah.
The stewards of Gondor were proper authorized users of the Palantiri,
Yeah.
and Denethor was exceptionally strong-willed. Sauron is not a proper authorized user; he just exceptionally strong-willed. That's why he was able to use the Palantiri. So when Denethor wound up confronting him, Denethor was protected by being an authorized user and a strong will, so Sauron couldn't overcome him and enslave him.
What makes him authorized? Was it like just the fact that he was
The line of
that he
kings,
was in the line of
the line of kings authorized the stewards of Gondor because they were the stewards of Gondor while the kings were still there. Right?
Yeah.
So they were authorized users of the Palantiri. There was a group of people basically that the line of kings had authorized and taught the lore of the Palantiri.
I got a question. Like the king versus the steward. Like, what was their like? If now that Aragorn is the king, after post Return of the King, and I think was Faramir is now the steward. What is the duties between the two? Like, I know a king is obviously the ruler. Was the steward because the steward was actually he's like the hand of the king in like Song of Ice and Fire, where he's like the administrative one that gets all the shit done, basically.
It's kind of that, but also you have to remember, Elendil was the High King of Arnor and Gondor. Isildur was the King of Arnor and the heir to the High Kingship. His brother Anarion was the High King of Gondor. Eventually, Isildur got it all because everyone else died. Keeping it simple, right?
Okay, so the High King was the king of two was the king of two
both established kingdoms. So
and his sons were kings of the two respective kingdoms.
I'm sorry, I messed that up.
So the king had
Elendil was the High King of Arnor and Gondor, and he established Arnor, right?
Okay.
His two sons, Isildur and Anarion, established Gondor, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of had a joint kingship, but eventually, when Elendil died, Isildur would inherit Arnor, and then you have the two brothers and so forth, right?
I forget what is Arnor in the present? Because Arnor's obviously gone. So what is Arnor in the present? Is it
west of Rohan to the shore?
So where like Eregion was or something?
No, Eregion is
Eregion. Excuse me.
I have a perfect tool to show you this. Hold on a minute. I wish they had finished this website. It is the best Lord of the Rings website like ever.
All right, let's share it right here. Art and map.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's made with Google Maps. Okay.
So which one is Valinor? Is that Valinor, the one on the left?
So this is the second age. That's Valinor. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Numenor, and eventually third age that would obviously be gone. So this is Middle Earth.
So Middle Earth is basically Asia and Europe.
Yeah,
it's like Europe and Asia.
Asia's over here.
There's an Africa. There's an Africa beneath it.
Yeah. So the Earth got further changed by Eru changing. The Earth is still flat in this map. Okay. Eru made the Earth a spherical after he sunk Numenor.
Yeah.
Technically the way they describe it, Valinor stays where it is.
Yeah.
Earth just gets pulled away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why it's called the straight road to Valinor, as opposed, But anyway, to zoom in a bit, so Eregion is Galadriel's work established Eregion here, right?
Okay.
You see how there's this big open area to where Rune is, like here's Mordor in the mountains, right? And here's Mirkwoods over here, for example. Let me zoom in a little more.
Didn't the blue mages go, or the blue wizards go to Rune or something? Yeah, I know they went
east into the far east over there somewhere. They disappear into that area. So this is wide open territory for the men of the east who had fallen to Morgoth and Sauron's influence to invade, right? Otherwise, you got the three mountain ranges. So Galadriel and Celeborn established sort of the dwarves and the elves of Mirkwood and the elves of Lothlorien and the humans of Gondor as an alliance to prevent the mass invasion to this open territory. So Eregion is he here, right here? Eregion?
Yeah.
as you reach
That's
in.
the Misty Mountains right there, right? So that's right by the
Yeah.
mountains.
Yep. It's this whole area right here.
And I had hiking Feanor like about a month ago.
Yeah.
And apparently, so west of Eriador, there was a old civilization called Bulgaria, I think, right over there or something.
Beleriand. I'll
Oh,
show you
Valeria,
Beleriand.
sorry.
I'll show you Beleriand. Let me go back to the Ages of Arda.
The first age, right? So once they beat Morgoth, then that whole area sank, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Well, if you look at the map,
Valeria, yeah,
Mordor is over here.
yeah.
So this all sank.
So you're saying Mordor was not created by a key that released a dam, and the dam went underground and caused a volcano to erupt, and Mount Doom was created, and Mordor was created.
Yeah. Melkor put a coin in a slot.
Coin in a slot. There you go.
Mount Doom was created by Melkor.
Yeah.
Sauron went there and made Mordor there because that was a vestige of Mordor's power in that map. Yeah. But Beleriand's over here. This is basically where it sunk. This whole chunk over there. But going back to what we're talking about, so see here, right here, you can see Beleriand. You see this, all this stuff there.
Yeah.
That's what sunk. That's Beleriand is like all this.
So because of that color, so does that mean it's more shallow than the darker blue of the ocean?
I would guess that. I don't know if Tolkien ever I don't think Tolkien ever said anything like that. I think that's just the way the author's saying this is where the land under the wave were.
I'm curious if the ocean raised or simply that sunk, like that literally sunk underneath, and these were not simply the highlands.
I'm pretty sure it's described as it being sunk. At cataclysm sinking.
So kind of same with Numenor, which eventually sunk.
Yeah, that was the cataclysm called Iluvatar, sinking it under waves.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Well, Arnor is over here. So the Elven Kingdom of Lindor is like the coastal kingdom. The Shire would be like over here.
Yeah.
If you go, here's Bree. See, Bree is still there. You see Bree? Here's the Shire.
So Bree predates the Shire. Interesting.
Yeah, the Hobbits settled in Bree, then went to the Shire.
So the men of Bree, are they basically descendants of the people of Arnor?
Yeah, not the Numenorians, but the regular humans. Here's the Third Age.
Yeah.
Like I said, I wish they had finished this product. It was such an awesome thing.
Were the Numenorians reserved to the upper class, like the higher class, the nobility, the rulership?
That's the impression that how do I put it? It wasn't like they were not an arrogant people, if you know what I mean. They were naturally noble, naturally learned, longer lived,
taller apparently. Elendia was 8 feet tall.
Yeah, way taller in the past.
Yeah.
They were descended from the three houses of the Edain, who also were gifted by being around the elves with maximum human potential, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
And they, how do I put it? Based on how Tolkien depicted it, that anywhere they went, they were respected and considered high in society and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They're all considered like nobility. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gondor, Arnor, like the region here, the men who live there were descendants of the men who were not the three houses of the Edain, but of the same blood.
Oh.
So the three houses of Edain came from this group of men whose descent eventually became the Rohirrim and the normal people of Gondor. But the three houses of Edain moved basically to Beleriand, where the elves were, and became associated with the elves.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really kind of. That he went through all that work to describe essentially how the origin of the elven languages. That's why he wrote the Silmarillion and all the stuff, just to explain how all the elven languages evolved.
And the thing is, the Silmarillion was the first thing I think he ever wrote. Right? When it came to what eventually, and I think he merged the idea with The Hobbit. Well, when he was writing Lord of the Rings, so he merged both of those worlds together.
He wrote a lot of disparate things, like Tom Bombadil, for example. We made poems for his kids.
Yeah,
and he made a lot of. Do I have Tom Bombadil next to me? Oh, I don't. It's back there on the couch. He made a lot of disparate things. that, like, for instance, the Balrogs. He wrote this poem about this nightmarish hell cavalry of like 5,000 Balrogs, basically.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. But he eventually folded that into the Legendarium. Like he wrote a lot of his early works, which were derived out of his, I guess you would say, study of Germanic lore.
Yeah.
Eventually just parts got added into or led to stuff in the Legendarium.
Didn't dwarves come from Germanic folklore? Where did dwarves
Yes.
come from?
So the Norse and Germanic folklore.
Okay.
Yeah. Although
What
the
about what
interesting.
about what about elves?
Oh, okay. So here's the elven dwarf thing. Now, remember two things. What we call Norse. A matter of fact, before we get that far, if you ever want a primer on, uh, like a good book to give you subject of like Norse mythology, a summary of Norse mythology,
Yeah.
The Viking Spirit by Daniel McCoy. It's kind of like a college 101 style textbook, and it goes over the gods and the religion and traditions and the
Yeah.
folk tales. Okay, so the skinny of it, so to speak, is what we call Norse lore is what survives of the older Germanic lore, right?
Yeah.
And those Germanic peoples, the northern tribes became the Norse people. The
Yeah.
western tribes became like the Angles and the Saxons in England.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Tolkien's well, when and Tolkien saw that the lore of the people of England had become subsumed by Celtic lore and medieval folklore. Keep it simple, okay? And
Yeah.
he was like, and he loved the Norse stuff, so he wanted, like, what he wanted to make up a fictional lore of the ancient Germanic people for England.
I heard it was
So,
the Norman. There was a Norman invasion that really kind of
oh, he
caused a
hates
lot of the
he
old English
well,
mythology to be lost.
the Germanic culture was oral, so it was the only reason we have anything surviving is because the Christian and Muslim scholars wrote down Norse stuff. Okay,
Okay.
so Germanic and Norse cultures and Celtic culture were all verbal cultures, so nothing was written down other than some funeral, like in Norse in the Norse lands of Scandinavia, they had funeral stones, one or two temples, and some waystones with skaldic poetry on it. And then, but when the Christian scholars came along, like Saxo Grammaticus in Germany, or the guy who wrote, or the one who wrote the Eddas, the Poetic and the Prose Edda. Prose Edda was written by Snorri Sturluson. Um, they were Christian scholars and writers, so they went on to gather the tales people were telling them, and he scolded poetry and wrote them down. You know,
Hmm.
Saxo Grammaticus did the same thing in the 9th century. That's where the Chronicles of Amleth come from, by the way, which is the Norseman. He wrote these stories down in the 9th century, and they got preserved by the Archbishop of Germany, basically. Um, and the same thing with the Scandinavian. Do I have books all over the place. I keep searching for them forever. But all the original lore that we call Norse mythology and Norse lore was written down by the early Christians, except for some stuff that was written. This is the origin of the 13th warrior, by the way. Um,
Oh.
a Muslim, a Muslim scholar, an expert in Islam, was sent north by the Caliphate, uh, to the land of the Volga Vikings,
Hmm.
and because the Muslims were making inroads into converting peoples, so they wanted to send him to teach them the proper Islamic lore. And
Yeah.
um, Ahmad ibn Falnad, he had wrote a travel log of his travels to and among the Volga Vikings, and he's the only recorded, written down example of a Viking funeral where they did a human sacrifice, and a couple other rituals. And he described it. He admired the people in a sense. They were hardy people, but he called them they had bad body odor though. But
Oh shit.
they were exceptionally physically athletic. They were all tall, like gigantic, and you
Yeah.
know, um, he was very blunt in his description. And that original documentation got lost, but then bits of it survived as a secondary source through the centuries until the 1920s, when his original travel log was discovered almost entirely in like 1924 or something like that.
Oh, I see.
And then decades later, Michael Crichton, was inspired by Beowulf, which Tolkien did a great translation of, by the way, and Ahmad ibn's travels, Fanad's travels, and he wrote Eaters of the Dead, which became the 13th Warrior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that was obviously adapted. I remember 13th Warrior was made into a movie, I think in like the 90s, I believe.
88, 90, 90, 90, 91, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
On Jacob Ironside's movie review that we do on weekends, we went over it. It's pretty. If you ever want to get, I dropped like all the lore I knew back then for it. I was like, because I love that movie. The end, I love that Viking prayer. I love that whole movie.
Yeah, I wrote it down. 13th Warrior. It's another one I haven't seen.
Yeah.
So
But back to what we're talking about. So the original lore of the Germanic people, and when I say the Germanic people, I'm talking about people who lived the same time as the Romans. So third,
yeah,
fourth, fifth, sixth century. That's gone. Like there's no written record of that. The written record started in the 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries when most of the Germanic peoples were the ones in Scandinavia, right? So
yeah,
Tolkien wanted to create something of the Germanic lore for his people, but the only thing left was the Norse lore, right? Which he had already gotten into from Beowulf and all that. And like you mentioned, the Normans, the name Sackville Baggins is named because Tolkien hated the Normans, hated them.
yeah. That's right.
Sackville is a French origin name, and he named the people he hated the most. The people who should hate
So
the
anything
most.
that ends in Ville, well, yeah, of course. Anything that ends in Ville,
Yeah.
of course. French. Yeah, duh.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
that's why the Sackville Baggins are the Sackville. They're the
That's why they're nasty.
Yeah.
Got a good point there.
He had a sense of humor. I mean, Tolkien had a sense of humor.
Yeah. How did I keep forgetting how he puts it? I never remember that. Remember how he ends his speech in Fellowship? He's like, "I don't like you half as well as you
I like
deserve.
half of you more than you deserve. I like more than half of you less than you deserve, and less than half of you more than you deserve." Some line like that.
Yeah,
it's a great line.
Yeah. Like I can't even like it's even hard for me to say it. That's how clever it is. So
he was a master wordsmith. The opening to of Baron and Luthien, the line at the beginning. I can never. I'll remember it perfectly, but I will look it up for you. Is the greatest sentence constructed in the English language like ever. Give me a second to grab it.
Okay.
But while I'm grabbing it, so back when we were saying the lore, we were circling the lore from what the origin of the elves and dwarves. Hold on a second. Nope, not that. I'm being stupid. There we go. Instead of looking up that way, I have a whole set of quotations.
Okay.
It's in my quotes.
So I was curious. All right. Yeah. So let's finish. Let's finish that line. Thought.
So, among the tales of sorrow and of ruin that come down to us from the darkness of those days, there are yet some in which amid weeping there is joy, and under the shadow of death, light that endures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that to me is the greatest sense ever constructed in the English language. It is such a hopeful. Remember talking about how I love the Tolkien that like you triumph over evil, but not in a sort of like crush them and defeat them and go away. Like you endure. You endure. The light endures. You go on. There's tragedy and people die. I mean, you're 10 years younger than me, obviously, so you'll hopefully die after I die, right? So I'm gonna pass away into shadow and whatever. But you could be a light that remains. You know what I mean? Like life goes on as long as you continue to work for it. And that was a theme present in his work that was just amazing. I could go on and on about this.
Sounds beautiful.
This whole show is basically becoming Tolkien. It's like it's all.
Yeah. So Tolkien is probably so understandably Tolkien is one of your earliest loves. When did you discover? I know Wheel of Time came out when you were older, obviously. So did you discover it right away? Did you discover it years later?
Wheel of Time, I kind of talked about it before. I had been a fan of Conan, obviously.
Yes.
Which Tolkien liked. He didn't find out about Conan until in the 1960s, and he really liked it when he got it. When Sprague de Camp, who was another author who was overseeing the Howard estate, him and Lynn Camp. There are other fantasy authors. Anyway, they told Tolkien about him, and they sent him some of the works, and he was like, "Oh, I really like this stuff." But anyway,
he liked the pulpy. He liked the pulpy Robert E. Howard.
Yeah, the pulp stuff is more of an American writing phenomenon than European. You know? And before the internet, unless you knew to go look for it, you would never find stuff like that. You know what I mean? So anyway, I was a fan of Conan, obviously, and I became a fan of Jordan's Conan stuff. And one day I'm walking into the bookstore because again, there was no internet, no way to look stuff up. It was just if you Starlog and Fangoria and a couple of the fanzines, and word of mouth
Yeah.
and bulletin boards. Remember the old bulletin boards? Were you old enough to know what those are? Z modem protocol, dial up modem, and all that. Were you?
38.
So you kind of well, okay. So the way we used to get online back in the day was you had a modem that would connect to your phone line.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Call a bulletin board.
E-oh.
Yeah, and it's funny because I guess I'm tech oriented. When we would probably say, "Hold on, let me listen to your modem." And the third tone is wrong. It's not connecting properly.
Yeah. Yep.
But and the internet back then was something you connected to these bulletin boards, but there was no way unless it was word of mouth, you didn't know about like other stuff. So I walked into the bookstore. And I'm like, I'm looking for Robert Jordan Conan novels, and I said to the person at the counter, they knew I like fans. They're like, "Hey, Jordan ever write another Conan novel?" I said, "No, but he started this other book series called The Wheel of Time. You might find interesting." So I went and bought the first 6 books because I like Jordan. I only read the first half of the first one before I got sick for about 7 years. Physical and mental illness, my early to mid 20s were just gone, right? So years later, I'm back getting my physical and mental health together. So I needed a book to take with me when I went to therapy. So I said, I've been reading that Wheel of Time thing, Jordan. Let me get back into that. So I read the Wheel of Time, and I read the first 6 books in a quarter of a month, 3 or 4 times. I loved it so much.
How long did it take you to read those first 6 books?
About a month. I'm a very fast reader. I could, but as I get older, it gets even faster and faster. It's like,
oh really?
Yeah. It's the more okay. So you can, I guess, blame the Jesuits for this, but the more you again, I have a great memory too, so you got to factor that in. The more you are comfortable with vocabulary, the faster you will read because your brain's translating what you're reading. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what do you do for a living?
Engineer.
So if you were looking at, say, like an electrical engineer, civil engineer, like what?
Mechanical.
Say. So if you're looking at a schematic for a machine, let's say, right?
Yeah.
With your experience right now versus what you experienced 15 years ago when you were in college or whatever, you can read it a lot faster now because the terms are more ingrained in your mind, and so that's
correct.
Right? Yeah. It's the same thing with reading books. The more you pound vocabulary and reading structure into your head, or like how once you do calculus, algebra becomes ridiculously easy.
Yes,
because you're doing it all the time. Like one calculus problem has like 16,000 algebra problems built into it. So that books were like that to me. Like the Jesuits, it's kind of funny. I didn't even know the indoctrination that they were doing until I realized it. But so in English class, we would have a vocabulary book every week. There were 30 words in that book that we had a standard assignment. We had to memorize it, complete the exercise in the book, write every word in a sentence, like a sentence on a page each. Write there was a whole memorization routine, right? But every other class had a vocabulary list. Math had a vocabulary list. Science, freshman year it was generic science. It was bio year 2, chemistry year 3, and physics year 4. All of them had vocabulary lists on top of the textbook, and so these words get pounded into you like a knowledge of vocabulary, and so you become more. Plus, as a reader, obviously, I've been reading Tolkien and other stuff for years, right? So by the time I get to my 30s, I can just pound books away. You know what I mean? Just like, and just recall them, and So plus, if you get obsessed over something, you stay up and
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'll say this: when I didn't read much as a kid, so when I pushed myself to read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings when I was in high school, and the only thing I've really read was a few Star Wars books, and maybe a few Star Trek books before that. So yeah, like I was in for an extreme awakening, especially with all the vocabulary. And and there was no internet. I didn't have my Kindle to simply highlight the word. One thing I love about the Kindle, I can highlight the word and I'll get the definition right away. Before that, you had to have a dictionary on hand if you wanted to look up a word. And that was always a pain in the butt for me because I always misplaced the dictionary. So I rarely ever looked up a word back in the day. Now because of the ease of doing it, my vocabulary has gotten a lot better since I started reading again.
Yeah.
About 9 years ago when I started reading Stephen King and Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, as your brain does it more of anything, any behavior like that. You ever see how people can walk on a tie wire with no balance beam like it's nothing?
It's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah, I
But
know.
but if we tried that, we'd fall to our deaths in 3 seconds. But
Yeah,
they've been doing that for years, so their
yeah,
human gyroscope is tuned perfectly. Um, it's the brain can be trained to do phenomenal things, and reading is one of those.
yeah,
You're seeing it now with you're reading more, so it's becoming easier and easier,
yeah,
and you might find stuff. You might find some stuff you read years ago that you thought particularly complex as being easy reads now. As you because your vocabulary level, your comprehension level is jacking up as you read more and more. You know,
yeah.
um, there was a philosopher named Immanuel Kant.
Kant. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not going off into a philosophy tangent, but he was the conclusion of the debate between I think the rationalists and
Have you read all this
the
work?
humanists.
Have you read all this
I
work?
read some of Kant's work. Uh, like what was the
What
main?
was Kant? What was Kant? I forget what Kant was known for.
Well, what he's known for is making his writing on purpose so obtuse and difficult to read that you have to want to read it and be an expert at the material to read it. Meaning, if you try to read like if you tried to read, I don't know, say War and Peace when you're 4 and can barely like a regular 4-year-old, not
Yeah,
saying me or you or whatever, and you're except you're reading is Fido went to the store and you pick up War and Peace, ain't gonna happen, you know. Well, Kant wanted his works to be like War and Peace for people who are extremely intelligent. You gotta like work for it. Another writer, a fantasy writer named Stephen R. Donaldson, takes that same approach. He wrote the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the 3 Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. But you should have a dictionary next to you when you read his stuff.
hmm
He's
yeah,
just and a lot of people tell I can't stand it because he uses all these 6-syllable words. I'm like, that's just his style, bro. Like if you don't like it, don't read it. But the story's worth reading, at least the first Chronicles, especially. You know.
yeah.
Now if you ever do a mental illness, the Chronicles are particularly poignant in working out issues and all that.
hmm
But we're talking about fandoms, I guess. So Lord, I found Wheel of Time, like I said, in that gap with that gap. My second fandom was probably Star Trek,
Star
the
Trek.
original
Nice.
series.
Yeah,
Because back when I was again predates modern hero, but they used to think called syndicated TV,
yeah.
and which kind of still exists, but not really. But Star Trek was on Saturdays. Like it's funny.
I was on almost every day back in the 70s.
Well, this was Saturday from when I was like 4 till I was like 9.
Yeah.
Saturday morning cartoons. Then at 1 o'clock was on Channel 11, the syndicated was the Hong Kong Action Hour. Then at 3 o'clock was on Channel 5, Kung Fu Theater. But
hmm
on Channel 9 was Kaiju Power Hour, Godzilla, right?
Yeah.
King Kong or whatever. Then at 6 o'clock was Star Trek. At 7 o'clock was Star Trek. At 8 o'clock through like 2 in the morning on 16 PBS hours was Doctor Who.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm one of the few living people who can say I saw all the episodes of Doctor Who, even the lost ones, because they're all over PBS in the 70s. And
Really?
Yeah.
You saw the missing episodes? Because I thought, didn't they delete those? Didn't the BBC delete
Well, what
those,
happened
right
is
after the first airing?
no, they made it onto PBS. They didn't delete them at the first airing. They deleted them when they had to reuse the tape. So what happened is the copies that were sent overseas to PBS or that's how they found the missing episodes. They keep going to like foreign countries and finding their
Yeah.
dingy copies. Like they found one in North Africa in a broadcasting station with they had like the African dialogue translation, but
Yeah.
a decent copy of I think one of the second Doctor's episodes there, and they took the audio which they have and remerged and released that episode years
Because I know the audio is all intact. Like all the like people have
Yeah.
recreated episodes just with either some people have
They
animated, they've
animated
animated
them,
it,
yeah.
or they
Yep.
were just using just pictures.
Yeah.
Like
So like it was. So we're at the point I think we're ever going to find any more of the missing episodes. So I've always said, just reshoot them at this point. Not right now because it's a horrible time and era to do it, but like just reshoot them with like they had that actor I can't remember his name who played the first Doctor in some of the modern shows.
William. Christopher Heckelson.
He played Walder Frey.
Oh, David Bradley.
David Bradley, yeah, he's a pretty good impression of the first Doctor. So You
Yeah.
know, a couple missing episodes first. I have to redo him with that. You know, I would be fine. You know, so I would be okay with that sort of approach. You know, they'd be like you call them 2.0s or whatever. They'd be homage type of, but that's how you get them back. You know,
Yeah.
but the point I'm making is that was my childhood. Like Saturday afternoons from like 7 in the morning to like 2 in the night. All that genre stuff that was on syndicated channels and PBS. You know, so Star Trek.
So what episode? I mean, you see, you got really into the original Star Trek. So what episode do you remember what episodes you really liked back in the
Well,
day?
the oldest episode I remember seeing first was the one with they went to that planet where there was the people were calm until 6 o'clock at night.
Oh, Return of the Archons.
Return of the
Yeah,
Archons, yeah.
yeah.
That's the
The
oldest episode
festival.
I remember seeing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
and then they had the so the festival. Then they had because of that they had the riots.
yeah.
Everybody was out of control,
Yep.
and then everybody once the clock went back to 6 a.m. Everybody just resumed. It
Yep.
just resumed
Yeah.
control. It was creepy as hell.
And now there's
Um,
a whole Purge franchise of movies.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that, and then I think it's the first time Kirk tells the computer to go f itself, and it does.
Yeah.
So
Kirk defeating computers through the power of mental jujitsu. You know?
I think the episode that I talk about the most lately because it's so relevant is the episode, the next episode, the Taste of Armageddon. That's the one where
Yeah.
they go to Eminiar
Yep.
and they fight
The
their neighbor
disintegration
with
chambers.
computers. Yeah, the disintegration chambers,
Yeah.
and it's just like imagine having an insane sense of duty to the point where you're willing to turn yourself into a disintegration chamber just so that that the state can continue to have a peaceful war or a comfortable war instead of having a terrifying war that could destroy a civilization.
Well, I don't think that's being loyal. I think it's being propagandized and dominated.
Yeah, they
I
they
mean,
say they say they are strong in duty, but it's just
I mean, we can't get into it because it's obviously political and channel can think for it. But think of some of the scenarios like in the Middle East today in a particular country that dealing with a certain scenario now, and
yeah,
how they're telling them to just suck it up and take it, you know.
yeah.
Or I mean, but so my favorite Star Trek episodes, uh, the Doomsday Machine, Balance of Terror. Um,
I liked Arena a lot.
Arena was really good. I like it. I would say it's on my second tier of favorites, only because I was a little.
I mean, Arena does repeat things that balance a terror star, like the idea of there's an attack and then they have to go after the ship and destroy it. I mean, it feels like it's a repeat, but then the twist is
Well, okay, I'll put it this way: Balance of Terror and Doomsday Machine are a very intellectual episode. Kirk and Spock outwit the Doomsday Machine, if you think about it, right? Think of how it ended. They didn't outpower it; they outwitted it. You know,
they send the ship.
yeah.
They send the constellation
It's
into
40 years ago. I'm still trying to avoid a spoiler. Look at me.
yeah. They send the constellation. I forget they rig it up to explode.
So yeah, they detect the fluctuation when Decker's shuttle. That's the
Yes.
father that's the father of Decker from Star Trek, the first movie, by the way. People will know that.
And that you would have never known that until the encyclopedia came out, or maybe it was in the script. I don't know.
I thought they mentioned it in Starlog. I remember seeing that when they're talking about the movie that Captain Decker was going to be Commodore Decker's son. But that would be before your time, because Starlog predates you. You know,
I found out about it because I have a copy of the Star Trek Encyclopedia from '97 somewhere, and it says in there that Matt Decker is the father of Will Decker. So
yeah, but we those of us who were fans knew that when the movie came out. I'm guessing it was a Starlog type of interview where maybe the director said, "Oh yeah, this character Matt Decker is Commodore Decker's son," or whatever like that.
Starlog. So was that like an interview or a magazine article?
Starlog and Fangoria were the two big there were other magazines, especially in the 70s, like fanzines they used to call them. But Starlog and Fangoria were the ones that lasted through like the 90s. Technically there's a Starlog website out there now, but I don't think they do much with it. If I have them handy, it'll take a while to dig them out. I still have at least 100 of my Starlogs laying around. But anyway, Doomsday Machine, they detect that fluctuation, and they deduce, well, that little shuttle had X amount of megatons and caused a disruption of its power grid. What if we have a bigger explosion? Maybe we can disrupt this power grid. They intellectualize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they don't just like throw a bomb at it and hope it wins. They say they make a plan that's intellectual and they think it through, and they take a risk, which is Kirk on the ship. But that's part of the deal. Same thing with Balance of Terror. It was an intellectual game between Kirk and the Romulan captain. Like that
correct.
back and forth, and and it was obviously some character play with Spock and the guy who hated Romulans and Vulcans and all that.
Styles, yeah.
Styles. So those two episodes, Arena, I like it, but it's not as intellectual. I like when Kirk and Spock outwit people. I really like that. It's like a big time thing for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
Or you want another one? Or the people don't like that as much. The episode with the Pon Far and
Mock
McCoy.
Time.
McCoy outwits both of them.
Yeah, he puts the triox compound
Yeah.
into Kirk, and it causes Kirk to simulate
basically-
death.
yeah,
He gets knocked out, but they think he's dead, and
Yeah.
Spock thinks he's dead, and that's what releases him from the fever.
Yeah. Well, he wins the fight.
I have a fever,
I have a fever.
and the prescription is triox compound. More cowbell.
Need more compound. Need more compound.
And they do have bell. They do have a bell. The Vulcans have a bell in that episode.
Yeah.
Ding ding.
Then you go forward to Next Generation with Darmok. I love that episode.
Yeah, I got into a debate with a coworker of mine. He says, "What the fuck was the point? Like, if you want to communicate with the humans, because that's what Captain Dathan, played by the late Paul Winfield, was trying to do. I was like, learn the humans' language, learn how the humans talk. Why are you forcing the humans to learn your stupid metaphors?" That was his argument. I couldn't argue that.
Okay, so there's a lot of in-jokes on that, inside stuff, but remember, Kirk and him aren't really talking to one another. They're talking to their universal translators.
Mm-hmm.
So they can get words like that sound like things in each other's language.
Yeah.
But the translator can't translate the concepts. Do you get that was happening in the episode? So, so when when Picard and Paul Winfield's character, I can't remember the captain's name. Picard and
Dathan
at whatever at Eladril, whatever the line. Anyway, they're not trying to understand. The translator is giving them words, right?
Yeah.
But they're meaningless because the underlying concepts, the people who speak only in metaphors, their end of it, they use these metaphors to learn their information, right? But,
yeah.
The language that we're hearing Picard speak in English doesn't speak that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and they had to learn through the shared trial. That's how they could convey to Picard that their language was the language of metaphor. And so that's why I love the episode. It was like the two great actors acting it out, and then like Picard figuring it out with like the way his character worked. He was a strong character physically, but he was more of a genius. He was also could use his mind, very Kirk-like in a way. So
I have to say this to whoever's watching now. Consider joining the Nerdporeal Continuum. Temba, his arms open, or something. Is that how it goes? Temba, his arms open.
Timba, his eyes open.
Darmok and Gilad
at Tanagra.
Tanagra.
Yeah. And then what else? The episode of my favorite episode of Deep Space Nine is the Pale Moonlight.
That's a great episode.
The one where they kill the Romulan ambassador.
If I had to do it again, I would.
Yeah.
He looked at the camera and said that. I was just like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Yeah, I love that episode. There's a lot of great episodes of Star Trek that, like,
yes.
I'm trying to think.
What do you think of Chain of Command with Captain Jellicoe and Gul Madred?
Well, there's an example.
That was watching that two-parter while watching Picard season 3. The former was a breath of fresh air because I was like, everybody's praising Picard season 3, and I'm watching. I'm like, I don't see a whole lot. I mean, it's better, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference between that and other new Trek. And I'm watching like maybe I'm just souring on Star Trek, and I'm watching. I watched the DS9 episode Rockin' Shoals. That's the part 3 of the Dominion, the initial Dominion war arc.
Anytime, I mean, Patrick Stewart, granted, he's like gone crazy in a certain political way in real life, but anytime like he's allowed to act, he's a phenomenal actor. So,
oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like his role in the Chain of Command episode was awesome.
Yeah.
Another episode I love of again, almost every episode I love is going to involve him. The one where he gets hit with an alien machine that lets him live a whole life in another civilization.
The Inner Light, yeah.
With the flute.
Yeah, with the Ruskin flute, yeah.
That
episode makes me cry every
Yeah,
time.
yep. That's one of the few Star Trek episodes that we'll tear up over.
Yes.
Or here's a non-Picard one I really like. The one with Data and that little girl who's on the dying planet.
Oh, Pen Pals.
Yeah. That's a touching episode to me. The Data doesn't have emotions, but he has emotional reactions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one of the saddest episodes of Next Generation was The Offspring, and and Brent Spiner couldn't, like, Data could not emote, but his daughter Lal is like, I'll do it for both of us, and then he deactivates her for good.
You know what sold that episode for me?
What?
The guy who was there with Data, who I think it was Return episode. He was the guy who wanted to take Data apart. Remember?
Yeah, Bruce. Well, Bruce Madison wasn't in that episode, but they had like an admiral who was there, who was a specialist in positronics.
He walks out and he's like, his hands move faster than I could perceive, and
yes,
like, that actor sells the emotion of it. And
yes, he does.
Like you can see, like Data just do everything humanly possible, inhumanly possible to save his daughter, and he couldn't.
Yeah, and what sucks was, I mean, I loved it was so, like, that episode leading up to that point was just so wholesome. Like there was like Lal was trying to learn how to socialize.
Yeah.
And she manhandles Riker. Yeah. And then Data comes and he's like, Commander, what are your intentions with my daughter? Yeah. He's like, I was like, and this is right before, she has the cascade failure and all that, and it's just it makes it. That's what makes it worse. That's what makes the episode so heartbreaking.
Yeah,
and that's good. And then that's why, I mean, that's why when people say TNG is their favorite show, I don't blame them, because it has some of the best episodes of all of television, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. I mean, TOS, I guess, because I watched it when I was a kid.
I mean, TOS is my favorite, but I think when it comes to quality, I think TNG has some of the, like, in terms of the best episodes.
Well, the best
TOS
episodes,
the best
episodes of TOS and Deep Space Nine are as good as the best episodes of TOS. You know what I mean? They're all the best episodes. It's really the quality starts to decline. And some really good episodes of Voyager. Like Year in Hell was a good two-parter.
What really got me into Voyager was, because I started season 3. It was Scorpion Part 1. I saw Scorpion Part 1. I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. And then I didn't realize, I was like, oh, I want to see what happens next week. Wait a minute. There's no, why are they showing a different episode? Why aren't they showing Part 2? And then this is before I learned that, seasons had a finale and you had to wait months before the next season. I was only 12. I was a dumb kid then. So
yeah. See, what killed Voyager for me, aside from the wrecking the timeline hijinks and all that.
Yeah.
Like the 1990s in Star Trek should have been when eugenics wars were happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like, they had the they kind of forgot about that.
Well, someone told me years later, if you listen to the dialogue carefully, there's a line drop that's elsewhere on the Earth. Eugenics wars are beginning.
Well, so I don't know about that. It was supposed to be Asia. It's supposed to be Asia through the Middle East, if I remember correctly.
It's supposed to start there, and then World War III grows out of that, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and then Khan's people were exiled in 96.
Yeah.
According to the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the Botany Bay.
Yep.
The DY-100 class ship.
Yeah. Again, that's why they wrecked the timeline. I mean, they should have had the Earth more advanced or whatever. It would have been a little.
What do you think of the whole 29th century arc in Voyager? You had Henry Starling, who was he started off as a bum hippie. He finds the Aeon ship that Captain Braxton pilots, and then he takes the technology, and then he becomes like the next. He's like a Bill Gates / Steve Jobs tech billionaire. and he somehow takes control of Voyager. He's like, "Oh, you're only from the 24th century."
Yeah.
I laughed when I heard that.
Yeah.
I laughed when I heard that. But yeah,
at
he was a
that
great
point,
villain.
I was like, he was a great villain, but I was like,
Begley
done,
Jr.
I was done with Star Trek time travel mentally. I was like, too
Yeah,
many
they
temporal
did.
hijinks.
Oh, then you've seen the end of Voyager, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
hated it.
more time travel.
I hated it. I was like, they're really gonna do this. They're really gonna do this. I was like,
Okay, I got a question for you. How would you have preferred them end Voyager?
either they never get back.
Really?
Yeah,
Like what the like it would end with them like ultimately they would still so Starfleet would know where they are, but they would simply settle on another
yeah.
world in the Delta
That would have
Quadrant.
been the best solution.
I've heard takes. I know there's this one YouTuber I used to listen to, and then I've heard some of his egregious takes about certain political side. But I think he said like they would the Starfleet would figure out a way to beam everybody to the Alpha Quadrant.
Well, they had a way to do that already.
They leave the ship behind in the Delta Quadrant.
They had a way to do that already. Don't you remember the teleportation device?
Um,
The alien teleportation that was incompatible with Voyager's power supply.
is that that was the one from season 1, right?
There was the super advanced aliens who couldn't share, who traded Voyager's like a data bank of stories and entertainment for
Yeah.
some material or whatever. And they
Yeah.
discovered they had this super teleport that could teleport like 50 light years in like
Yeah.
1 second. And I'm like, and so then who is it? Chakotay and Tuvok tried to steal it or whatever, and they committed an egregious Prime Directive violation according to Janeway. And I'm like, hello, land your ship on the planet. Ask them to teleport your ship or your power off 50 light years closer to your home world, which they can clearly do, and then keep going.
I got another question for you. Speaking of Voyagers, this is gonna be a fun talk. Do you think that I got into another debate with another person about this earlier Chillporeal. Do you think Janeway was in the wrong for basically stranding them in the Delta Quadrant by blowing up the array, the Caretaker's array, and for the sake of the Ocampa?
No.
They should have just. Do you think they should have just taken it and left?
Prime Directive. They had that. That's one thing. I mean, there's ways around it, but now what maybe she should have done was get a shuttle and blow the array up, and she stay there to do it and send the ship back or whatever. Like have the array fire up, send Voyager back, and she stay there in a shuttle and blow it up. That could have been done, arguably. But you have an obligation.
So she would have been stranded by herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you probably have to leave 2 people behind. Like Chakotay has to go back because he's the highest ranking dude. So you have to have maybe her and Tuvok or her and Kim or someone stay there to make sure you do blow it up.
Yeah.
But I have no problem with that decision. I just think that this, the teleportation device was a clear way to get home. There was no. That should have been the end of the show right there. What was a really sad episode of Voyager? Was the saddest episode of Star Trek? Do you remember the one where they had the crew of Voyager that was like a primordial clone or something like that?
Yes, I do. The demon planet. Yeah, I remember that. I
remember
that. Like that was just a buzzkill. Like I think I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
My teacher, what's funny was when I was in 8th grade, my 8th grade teacher was also watching. He was a Star Trek fan too. He actually watched Voyager when I watched it. So the day after, he'd be like, "What did you think of the episode?" I'd be like, "Yeah, this was messed up." And he actually asked me about that particular one that you're talking about. It was I was just like, what is going on with this crew? And then you realize they're the demon. They're trying to get back to the demon world. They don't make it. And then the real Voyager crew shows up at the end. They're like, what happened here? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, that was a truly sad episode.
Yeah.
And so I say Star Trek, TOS, TNG, and Deep Space Nine are the great TV shows, right?
Yes.
After them, and you could tell because it's I did some of the earliest videos was detailing the split and reformation between CBS, Paramount, and Viacom, which if you trace the timing, that's when Star Trek's quality started to suffer, right? So Voyager and Enterprise are the result of the splits, basically. And
Voyager was just Voyager repurposed too much of TNG and other Star Trek, but you know what? I'd rather have them repurpose Star Trek than have New Trek repurpose other franchises and not Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, I mean, then we'll get to Picard season 3, like you were talking before.
Yeah.
If none of other New Trek had existed, right? If it would have been Enterprise and then season 3. Excuse me, I'm repeating a little bit. I'm gonna stop that.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. If none of that had happened, if we just got Star Trek Picard season 2, I would have been okay with it. I said,
Yeah.
Throwback, homage, whatever, for all the writing problems in it. I got so disgusted with the horrible writing. I stopped my reviews after like the 4th or 5th episode. I will get back to them because I like to finish a season if I do a season. But like I got disgusted with all and it was very predictable. Like the whole, what did I so we had spoilers, but I don't care because it's a horrible TV show. I have no mercy for that. So we had the double secret, intricated plot of the changeling, the renegade, the renegade evil changeling, not just the changelings who are still out there somewhere, not the evil changelings who are still out there somewhere. Remember how Deep Space Nine ended, right? These are the renegade evil changelings, right?
Yeah, that were experimented on by the Section 31 at Daystrom Station.
Yep. Yeah.
And what's funny is they're supposed to be upgrades. They're supposed to be even more dangerous than the founders of themselves. And what the show showed was that they were just cannon fodder. Yep. Like the founders in DS9 were way more dangerous and menacing. Like, why would they? I've said this multiple times. Based on what we know about them in DS9, why would they need energy weapons? For the fact that it's a mystery.
They go and they weaponize the Borg. I saw that ending of that to come with the Borg Queen and with the ships all being in a Borg array. I saw that coming from a mile away, like 100. And I was like, did the Federation forget about the M5 incident 100 years ago? Did this escape their brains about giving computers control Star Trek?
Yeah, and the whole like, and even Steve, who never watched Star Trek, was like, this doesn't make any sense.
So I mean, they're supposed to have more advanced computer technology than we do, yet they somehow make it so you can't unplug the Wi-Fi array to the other ship.
Okay, so we have to answer this question from LPK member. Thank you for being a member, LPK. Thank you for the super chat for $1.99. Favorite Miles O'Brien episode, gentlemen. So when you say favorite Miles O'Brien, I am assuming you mean Miles O'Brien Must Suffer episodes per season. That's what I'm going to assume it is. So, Matt, do you have a favorite Miles O'Brien Must Suffer episode? I have a list of them right here.
It's probably the ones I don't remember all of them. It's probably the saddest one. Remember when they got their adult daughter and then she had to go back?
Yeah, I think that was Time's Orphan. Let me look.
That was I liked that one a lot. It was really good acting by everyone involved, and a very sort of technological, like in light of Star Trek's technology, and a very make you think episode based on the technology.
Yeah. What's funny? I forgot. It's a great episode that really I think initially fleshes out O'Brien. Well, maybe it doesn't initially flesh him out, but it really does a good job. The Wounded, the TNG episode, The Wounded, where we find out that the Captain Maxwell, the actor that plays the warden in Shawshank Redemption, he starts going. That's the first time we meet the Cardassians in Star Trek. And the Cardassians are like, even from the very beginning, the Cardassians are up to no good, but they always hide behind the treaty that they signed with the Federation. And Captain Maxwell of the Rutledge basically is just like attacking Cardassian ships left and right, destroying them, saying, "Hey, these they're making weapons, they're doing this."
Yeah,
and they have to take him in, and the only way to do that is the only person that served with him was O'Brien.
Yep,
they went to war together. They fought the Cardassians like I think a couple decades prior. And the conversation that those two have together is one of the best I've ever. One of the most touching moments. So they're singing together. They're singing the war songs and all that. They're recalling the fighting and all that. And O'Brien going like the Cardassians are trying to be conversational with O'Brien. O'Brien's like, "It's not you I hate, Cardassians. It's what I became because of you." If you remember that.
I remember that.
I was like, dude.
Wasn't there another episode where Chief was struggling with his like post-traumatic stress from the Cardassian War, because he had to work with the Cardassians when it was a Deep Space Nine episode. It wasn't a feature of the episode. It was something about it was the Chief's. It wasn't like the main plot of the episode. It was the Chief's role during the episode, so to speak. he had to work closely with a Cardassian for something.
I don't remember. I'm not
My
sure.
brain could be conflating things. I'll have to like Google around later and see if I can remember it. You know?
Yeah, but do you remember the episode where O'Brien, like everybody starts acting weird in front of O'Brien, and then we find out the O'Brien that we've been following the entire episode was an imposter, and he dies, and they find that the real O'Brien was captured and he was replaced by this sleeper agent. Do you remember that one?
What was it called?
I think it was called. What the hell episode was it called? It was. I think it was season 2. Let me see. I think it was called. Hard Time.
I'll have to go either watch it. Maybe watch it later.
Yeah, there was. I think it was Hard Time, and it was a creepy episode. Like it was just like O'Brien thinks that like his daughter just like doesn't like get away from me, and then it looks like Keiko is going to poison him because Keiko's evil. Like there was an episode where Keiko gets taken over by the power race. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. That was kind of I don't know. I don't remember. I remember not liking that and thinking it was kind of like that episode where on Next Generation where they got taken over by the aliens.
Okay, Hard Time was the one where he was in prison. He got falsely convicted, and they had the ability to make him experience like decades of prison in only like a couple of days.
Was this when he was on Cardassia?
I don't think that. No, the one where he was on Cardassia was Tribunal. That was the one where he gets accused, and then we find out like the Cardassian legal system is terrible,
Yeah,
and they strip his ass naked in front of everybody.
I remember liking that episode though.
It was a good one. It was a good one. Odo was his. Odo is his counsel and all that.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, and they got the old Cardassian lawyer to who was like, "Well, my job isn't to get you. You're already guilty. They're putting you on trial. The goal here is to get you the best sentence possible or whatever."
And Odo's like, "Well, you won your final cases because he was like, I'm about to retire, and you're gone, and I'm just here."
Yeah.
And then they're just. I forgot what they called the judge. I forgot they had the female judge and all that.
Yeah.
It was a good one. I like that one too, but I forgot the one with where O'Brien is the O'Brien we follow is an imposter. That was actually a good one.
I'll have to go through because it sounds like I don't remember, so I have to go watch it basically.
But yeah, Hard Time is a messed up episode. Yeah. Just like the whole idea, and I'm curious if this is going to be a reality. It would terrify anybody if you can force someone to endure, make them think they're in jail for 3 decades when they're only in jail for only a few days. Yeah, you have to live with that.
Nightmare fuel.
Yeah, that is nightmare fuel. So, but yeah, that's but yeah, and I liked Enterprise. I need to rewatch it. I think I've seen Enterprise the least out of all the shows.
I don't ever watch Enterprise again. It had the worst episode of Star Trek in the most insulting way possible. It's called Similitude.
Similitude. Is that the one with the third?
No. So the premise is that they need Trip to do something like that only Trip apparently can do, and Trip suffers an injury to his brain and spinal column. So they come up with this great idea from our genocidal doctor. Goes, I'll just make this living sapient clone of Trip, and then we'll just execute him and take his spine to put in the real Trip. That was the plot of the episode, and they were going to do this until the end when the clone Trip basically sacrificed his life, and then they got it without him having to be murdered. Ours were totally willing to let them murder clone Trip.
Interesting.
Yeah,
sounds like okay. The only difference is they made it obviously less. You know what makes me think? It makes me think of a Voyager episode. But
the one with Neelix and Tuvok merging.
Yeah, Tuvix. Yeah.
Well, that
except they didn't actually merge. It was a bad solution, but yeah, that was it was.
No, they could have done both though. Because remember, the transporter can make duplicates. You not remember Clone Riker?
Yeah. You know, they could have Tom Riker. Yeah. Because
we make a transporter duplicate of you, so you can still be you, right?
Yeah.
And then we split the originally up into 2 guys. And
I don't. Why did they? Yeah, you wonder why did they go in that direction? Have Janeway look like like she was about to execute a dude? Like that's how that episode ended. It was just what was that?
I think there's a time there's a thing writers do, like especially like bulk TV writers, because not remember it's always different people writing these episodes, and someone's like, I got a great idea to make Jamie look like a moral badass, you know, and,
Brandon Braga probably.
yeah, and they just those two Berman and Braga, they just ran Star Trek into the ground, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, they were the. I mean, the reason why DS9 was so good was because Rick Berman was hands off of DS9.
Yeah.
He had his hands though on Voyager, and that's kind of that's kind of what you see. And the Voyager, I mean, Voyager could have been like, should have been and I've heard this from better YouTubers. Should have been Year of Hell. I think honestly, I think Enterprise season 3 was more like should have been more Voyager should have been more like Enterprise season 3.
Could be.
Even despite that episode Similitude that you mentioned. I honestly don't even remember that one. That's
the fourth season of Enterprise was actually okay. Manny Koto took it over.
Oh yeah, I love. Yeah. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite seasons.
But I was so like after Similitude, I was like, this is just disgusting me. Like how could you like I have no respect for Archer as a captain or Dr. Phlox as a doctor, and after that, like they're mentally out of it for me. You know what I mean? Like, like I see them in episodes when I try to rewatch it, and I'm like, I think the disgusting characters. You know?
Yeah. So interesting. So,
but
that's Star Trek in a nutshell. So we're getting close to 2 hours. So I figure the last few minutes because I have to actually sign off because I got some stuff I got to do. But I know you last time we talked on my member stream, you recommended a few shows. So I know I did write down. I included Shogun because we brought up Shogun.
Yeah.
So Shogun is a show I do want to see. It's a mini series.
And you should read it too.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, definitely Shogun. I think Roots was another one we talked about.
Well,
Roots. I've seen Roots. I've seen like an episode of Roots. All I remember was the ship and them throwing the salt water on the wounded slaves and them screaming. That's the one thing. That's the only thing I remember.
Roots as a book is propaganda.
Who wrote Roots again?
What's his face? Alex Haley. And
what like abolitionist propaganda?
No,
like Uncle Tom's Cabin level.
No, as in he supposedly wrote about his ancestors, and when asked about it, he goes, "Well, I didn't think it had to be accurate when I made up the stuff in the book."
Yeah.
So not to say that's anything good about slavery, but there are much better stories of the horrors of that than the fiction that got turned into a huge movie that supposedly inspired all these people. And glossed over the fact that the people who sold the blacks into slavery were the African blacks who captured them.
Yeah,
a whole generation of black people started going back to Africa and embracing their tribes, and without being told that those are the tribes that sold them. Like if you told me, like if someone had sold my ancestors, I would want nothing to do with them.
You probably want to go. You probably, it could be a good revenge story. You have an adventure story. You send a kid. The kid grows up in another country. He manages to come back, and he wants to find the asshole that sold him in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, that's Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
if you think about it.
Or Godfather Part 2. Vito comes back and kills Don Cheech.
Yeah,
and everything. Yep. So
yeah. But
I did include Das Boot. Das Boot's another series. Now I know it's a movie, but I think it was originally a miniseries, right? With episodes?
I always saw it as a movie. I thought it might have been a book before that.
Well, yeah, I think it's a book, but I think they came out with a miniseries.
Well, there might be
and then they adapted a film based on.
Yeah, I think that might be true. I don't remember seeing the miniseries though.
Yeah,
there's a lot of times when they did European miniseries, they get like they could turn into movies or whatever. The girl with the dragon tattoo. The European movie first or whatever, or let the right one in becomes like the horrible American. Let me in.
So I got a question about Shogun. Is the main character, is he supposed to be European or is he just?
He's a European. He's a Dutch pilot for a English or Spanish vessel.
Is this after when Commodore Perry
So this is when the West was
Arrived.
first. So after they had the circumnavigation of the globe and all that, the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Dutch, basically, they were saying their merchant fleets to claim territories in the newly discovered Far East.
Like,
right?
is the Tokugawa shogunate still in power, or is this the Meiji era now?
I don't know enough to remember the particular. I think it's like the year 1600 or so. So what was going on around
Okay,
then?
so that's when the Tokugawa shogunate takes control of Japan.
Yep, I know more about Japanese mythology than I do about Japanese history. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
But anyway, so this is loosely based on a true story of these European pilots and sailors and their experiences in Japan, where if you didn't go to the specific cities you're allowed to go to, you were basically executed.
Oh.
Yeah, you were captured, enslaved, and executed. You know,
Yeah.
And that's how it happens to Blackthorn and his crew. They wind up in a part of Japan because they're trying to find their own pathway for the country he's being sent from, which I want to say is England, but it could be Spain. So he got access to the pilot logs for another pilot who had made the trip to Japan. And said he was trying to lead an expedition to find a pathway there for his company and the country he was doing it with.
Yeah.
And so they wound up. The Portuguese had the stranglehold on Japan, basically, and the Portuguese would not intercede with them. It was the English because it was a Papist thing. So the Portuguese were devout Catholics and all that. I remember that whole thing. The Jesuits, all that, yeah. So they were trying to. Excuse me. So Blackthorn gets there, but the ship crashes and the crew gets captured, and they start doing the torture and execution because they're Gaijin barbarians.
Yeah.
But the pilot himself is valuable because he has all this sea knowledge. So they're trying to. So Tornaga says basically, don't kill that guy. We want to exploit him. And then have you read or have you watched or read it yet?
No, no. I'm just it's on my list.
So I won't spoil it for you because it's a really cool story. But so that's how.
Is it a single book or is it like a couple of volumes?
It's technically one book, but it's split into 2 volumes.
Okay.
I mean, you could get it like there's giant versions of it that are one book. But most often, I'll see 2 paperbacks that are like 2 books, or it depends on how big they make it. If they make it the full size hardcover, I think they gave the one really big Martin size hardcover.
Yeah.
If they do paperback, it has to be like 2.
It's about the same length as something like I Claudius, right? Because I've seen I Claudius. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the BBC show.
It's I want to say it's 8 hours. I can tell you right away. Hold on, let's go over. I have it in my media library.
Yeah, I Claudius is about 12 episodes, I believe.
It can be broken up. No, it's not 12 episodes. Well, I believe it originally aired as a bunch of 2-hour, like as 2-hour movie chunks. So hold on a minute.
Okay. The old Planet of the Apes TV show, I think was aired as 2-hour movies.
Yeah,
they took 2 episodes and they made them into movies.
Yep. Yeah. They did that, but I have it broken. I have it as broken down by episodes. I love the Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes, not the nonsense that came around in the last 15, 20 years.
Oh, you didn't like the Caesar, the movies with Caesar?
Nope. So I have Shogun in 4 parts, each of which is let's see how many minutes.
Did they ever release
each of which is a 3-hour chunk? My Blu-rays have them as 3-hour chunks, so I ripped off a Blu-ray. I got 4 3-hour chunks. So 12
Did they ever release it in? Did they ever release it on physical media? Shogun.
Yeah.
On like DVD, Blu-ray.
I have it. I have it on Blu-ray. I'm presuming it's a legal copy.
Okay.
Got it on Amazon.
Wonder if it's. I wonder what. Maybe I can stream it. I wonder if it's on streaming at all.
Talk to me after this.
Okay.
All I'll say is, talk to me after this. Shogun is on Blu-ray. It's an overseas Blu-ray, so you have to like region 3 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not like it's hard to find because you got to get it. It's like an extra $10 or whatever.
Okay. So another question I have, and we've got 10 minutes left. Anime. Have you watched a lot of anime or no?
When I was younger, I watched it a lot.
Okay.
I said in the chat, I'm going back and watching a lot of the anime in my youth to see how it holds up. You know, Go 13 holds up. I'll tell you that much. Oh my god!
I watched the Go 13, the professional, the movie to prep for Brandon, the Chillporeal with Brandon the anime guy, because that was his name before he was Brandon the anime guy. He was Go 13. So I was watching that. I was like, wow, this movie is so toxic masculinity. Like,
glorious.
Like the male gaze, everything that everything that is so problematic now was in that movie. Is in that character, and it was awesome. Like,
awesome.
I miss characters like that. I miss badass characters.
Yeah, there are a lot of like I'm rewatching, almost done with Bubblegum Crisis now, the original 8 episodes.
I got it. Mad Machine.
I will love Pris to the day I die, but the show doesn't quite hold up as far as the plot of the story. It's a little,
Yeah, I listened to I've listened to the soundtrack more than I've seen the show. So I go, Konya wa hurricane, Konya wa hurricane, da 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 da. Sorry,
so
I love the soundtrack.
I can still drop into any episode of Astro Boy, especially the '80s remake of it.
You ever see the '60s?
I've seen the '60s. I don't have all of it.
Apparently, apparently it's really Astro Boy is what really kind of helped anime kind of take off and take.
I want to say Astro Boy was the first robot anime, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, Gigantor was the first giant robot anime, and that was in I think the Tetsujin 8. I forget what it was, Tetsujin 88 or something.
Yeah.
And then Tetsuwan Atom was was Astro Boy in Japanese.
Yep. And
then he had all the robots. Then in the 70s, he had all the super robot shows, and then Gundam was really the first time that you did a more real robot, a more practical.
Yeah, that's real robot anime or whatever they.
Yeah, then it followed up with shows like Dogram, Votoms,
Macross.
Macross. I'm trying to think.
Macross was big because of the Robotech adaptation.
Yeah. Macross is a great. The first Macross show is a brilliant series. Like it's some of the best I've ever seen. It's just like
Macross,
take Top Gun and Star Wars, mix them together, and you get Macross.
Of the Macrosses, I like those the original Macross, and then there was a Macross follow-up series where they had some sort of like singing in space or something like that. Macross 7 or something like that. I don't remember the name.
Oh yeah, that I still have not seen it. I know it's a '90s one. I've heard.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Things about it.
I enjoyed it. Sometimes, look, here's the thing, and this is have you ever seen TTGL? Tengen Top and Gurren Lagann?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so Gurren Lagann is an anime. They wrote the manga after they wrote the anime. It's one of those, and 24 episodes. It begins and it ends, and you love it or you hate it. Most people love it, and like
I know Gynax, the same people that worked on Evangelion, worked on Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, but it's not like Evangelion. It's the opposite. There's nothing depressing about. There's a lot of sadness. There's nothing depressing about Gurren Lagann. Okay?
Evangelion is just, what the hell did I just watch? That's Evangelion.
It's like watching the ending to Grave of the Fireflies for 3 hours.
Oh my god!
Can you imagine that? Like Grave of the Fireflies, like you were like kind of hopeful of the struggle and surviving, and then the end happens.
No.
Imagine taking the ending and making a 15-episode series out of it. That's Evangelion.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's insane. That movie, and
if you take the sort of that sort of emotional message, but not the plot, then you get that's a series Razafan, where it's all depressing.
I've seen Razafan. Razafan's has a happy ending, I believe.
Well, it does in a way, but it's depressing as heck. But nothing happens for like most of the episodes if you think about it. It's just people plotting around being depressed. It's like when I saw it years ago. I actually bought the 80. I actually had the. I think my brother might still have the ADV DVD that came out back in the early 2000s of Razafan. I love
it. It was a weird follow up to Evangelion, but they, instead of Judeo-Christian themes, they used like musical themes, and you had the Moo instead of. Yeah, I think that the Moo is another type of under like another lost civilization like Atlantis, if I remember correctly.
Mu and Lemuria. They're rumor. They're like legendary lost continents in the Pacific.
They're different. Yeah, so they're different. It's different from Atlantis, right? Or is it different mythology?
It's a different mythology. Atlantis is obviously a Greek.
Mu is Egyptian. Yeah.
Mu and Lemuria are like Southeast Asian, like different ocean. I know the Japanese legends had one of the two continents because it showed up in the Godzilla film, by the way.
Yeah.
Because
I know Ra is a god of Egypt, as an Egyptian god, and I don't know if Zafan is another one.
I think Zafan was a Greek concept, but I'll have to double check.
Okay.
I like that.
I have the Blu-ray, by the way. I do. Yeah. I still haven't watched. I've only watched a few episodes. I haven't.
I like the music a lot for that, and animation a lot, but the story is just,
Yeah, I mean, I like the character. I like the character. I like the character development. And
I love anime that gets me into it emotionally. Fist of the North Star pulls me right in emotionally.
I got Fist of the North Star too.
Naruto. Because I know we know a lot of times. I'm just speeding through this, but Naruto, I will still cry. Spoilers for Naruto, people. Spoilers for 20 years ago. Every time Jiraiya dies, I will still cry.
20 years ago. How many? I mean, Naruto. Geez, I mean, that show's still going on. It's called Boruto now.
Oh, that is such an abomination. Kishimoto didn't write Boruto. His fellow artist who helped him write the manga, who helped draw the manga, Nodami, whatever. He was the one who wrote Boruto, and he was such a horrible job. He was unofficially fired from it.
Oh shit!
Kishimoto had to take it back over, but it was too late after he had killed off Kurama. You know who Kurama is? The Nine-Tailed Fox?
I've only seen the first episode of Naruto, and that was it.
Even watching the first episode of Naruto, I will cry at certain points in the episode.
My friends back in the day used to watch Naruto, but then it got to a point where the entire show was just filler, and they just stopped watching.
You gotta watch, find a filler guide, and there is some filler that's worth watching, like the 2 episode, even a Boruto filler. There's an episode. The character named Kakashi always wears a mask, right? And there's filler episodes where the young Genin, go on a secret mission to unmask him and find out what he looks like. They do it once in early Naruto. They do it once in Shippuden, where all of the Kohona 9, who are the 3 rookie teams, work together, and they do it again in Boruto. And it's filler, but it's one of the most fun episodes you'll see of any anime.
Where does Naruto's end in Naruto? Now, because I'm familiar, Naruto ends after like a couple hundred episodes, and then Naruto Shippuden.
Yeah, so I think so. In the manga, the manga has a time skip, right?
Yeah.
And before the time skip is Naruto. After the time skip is Shippuden.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the manga does have a time skip.
Yeah, there's just a jump. He goes end part 1, and then the next issue is part 2.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Boruto just did the same thing. There's a 3-year time skip. End part 1, part 2 just started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, I don't know if you see it right there. My big. I got you. You ever see Yu Hakusho?
I love Yu Hakusho.
I think I might like that show more than Dragon Ball. I love the original Dragon Ball.
I'll say the first season of Yu Hakusho is better than anything Dragon Ball, but it gets a little. It gets less good as it goes on. You know what I mean? It's still good, but it gets less good. But I'm frightened because they're doing a live action Yu Hakusho for Netflix.
I've heard nothing but good things about One Piece.
But that's because Ida has control of One Piece.
Whereas Watanabe had zero to do with Cowboy Bebop. So that makes perfect sense. And do you agree with Angry Canadian here? Any filler with Kakashi is worth it?
I wouldn't say that. Although some of what he's calling filler, the Kakashi Gaiden stuff, comes from the Naruto light novels, which are authorized by Kishimoto. So if you have that, I'll agree with that statement. And the Shinobi race with Guy and Kakashi, that's probably the best filler episode of anything ever, of any anime ever, is the Shinobi race. You can watch it. You can watch it on its own. Just go watch it later or whatever. There's Naruto Shinobi race episode. It's never having watched Naruto, you will enjoy the episode.
Okay.
But to end it, if there's one anime you haven't seen yet, TTGL.
Tengen
Toppa Gurren Lagann.
Okay. So okay. All right. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
I'll throw a link in our chat in the Discord to the Wikipedia for that.
I got a question for you. Have you seen Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
Once I thought it was okay. I know you're into it. I know it's one you're into.
Might be one of my favorite animes of all
Yeah.
time. Might be one of the best shows I've ever seen in all time.
Hey, there's so much anime. Like, if you ask me why Hellsing Ultimate OVA is my favorite anime of all time, I'll tell you because it's beautifully violent and destructive, and no one will get that. Like the best episode of any anime I've ever seen is the fourth episode, and solely because of how artfully violent and destructive it is.
Of Hellsing Ultimate?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Hellsing Ultimate's fourth episode was the one with Rip Van Winkle.
Van Winkle. Yep.
All right. And then
spoilers,
Alucard kind of eats her up.
When he destroys her, he doesn't eat her and consume her. He destroys her. Like,
Okay.
When he's going in on the SR-71, he's making move faster than it can on its own with his telekinesis. People don't catch that, you know?
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And the whole landing on the ship, and I was like, it was glorious. I was like, oh my god, you know. But again, Hellsing Ultimate. Oh yeah, real short list. My favorite anime is Naruto, Hellsing Ultimate OVA, TTGL, Astro Boy, especially 1980s readaptation, Fist of the North Star, and the Gatchaman.
Gatchaman's great.
Yeah.
The original Gatchaman, 1972.
Either Gatchaman or the second American adaptation, the one without Seven's Arc 7.
G-Force.
G-Force.
Because there's Battle of the Planets,
and then G-Force.
This is before my time. This is late 70s. I wasn't born till 84. Yeah. So yeah, Battle of the Planets, which had the robot as like an additional animation.
Yeah, that was Seven's
narrator.
Yeah,
and then there was G-Force.
G-Force is the one and if you want for this one out there, it's a rare one called The Melody of Oblivion.
Okay. Melody of Oblivion.
That one in particular is pertinent to our modern era in ways that are surprisingly prophetic.
Melody of Oblivion. So is that a movie or is that a series?
24 episode series.
Melody. Is it a newer one or
no, it's from the 90s?
Melody of Oblivion. Let's see. Let's look. Series rife with cultural references. Book of Revelation. Is it a mech? No.
Nope. There are robots in it, but that's not like mecha.
It's also Gynax. Okay. Interesting.
It's very relevant to our modern society.
Okay. All right, I'll write that down. Melody of Oblivion.
Yeah. But like number one on that list with Jory Seat Helsing is and you haven't watched Naruto yet, find a guide. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
But
you say Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann, yeah.
Okay. I mean Gurren Lagann's been on my list for like since 2007. So I've been meaning to watch. I never got around to it. Okay, I'll do that.
You'll start it and you'll finish it. Like you'll like, I have to watch it. I have to watch it. But there is a time skip in the middle, so you'll say I can stop for a week or whatever.
All right, so you said Gurren Lagann, Melody of Oblivion, obviously Fist of the North Star, which I've already seen, Hellsing Ultimate, which I've already seen, Gatchaman or G-Force, I've seen Gatchaman already. So,
and if you haven't seen Astro Boy,
Astro Boy, I've not seen Astro Boy. 1980, right? Because I know
they do a one season like readaptation of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go watch the original, sure, there's a couple seasons of
it. I think I might still have Astro Boy 1980 on one of my hard drives. It's been years since I've used that hard drive because I used to have a lot of anime on my hard drives and all that. So, but I like when the hard drive ages and you haven't used it in a while, the cable doesn't quite work and everything. So
yeah. Well, I have a workaround for that. I have my own media library. So.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, so I have a Plex media server.
Oh, okay. I know what that is.
Yeah. So, but my whole family uses it. I have friends in California who watch it.
Yeah.
They're like, man, I'm mailing you my Blu-rays. Put them on the Plex. That's what I tell them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like my whole family has I have like TV shows my aunt watches I would never watch, like Murdoch Mysteries. There's 17 seasons of that far. you know. But she, like we were joking with my cousin and I, like, dude, is your mom still alive? She's watching Murdoch Mysteries continuously for 4 days straight. Is she even sleeping? And she goes, no, she's not even sleeping. She's just watching Murdoch Mysteries.
Murdoch Mysteries.
It's like a
British
show or whatever.
Okay.
The point I'm making is my whole family, like I have 4 or 5 family members. My little brother, like, has been getting stuff for him in there, and it just, what it is.
So Matt, thanks for doing this. Thanks for joining me. This is thank you for being a member. This is Chillporeal's mainly. I wanted to prioritize members first, give you a platform, talk about whatever you want to talk about, and this was a great conversation. I definitely want to do this again.
We didn't Lord of the Rings consume like 75% of it.
It consumed at least 50%,
and then Star Trek
the first hour,
50% or whatever.
Then the next 25%. Then we finally got to some recommendations and all that. So, but this is a great conversation. Yeah. So, is there anything you want to promote? Anything you want to plug for yourself?
My Frankenstein the novel, Mary Shelley's novel review will be up sometime after midnight on the East Coast. I finally will do my review of the last episode of Wheel of Prime. I usually release like a reaction that's cut down and review. I can't stomach re-editing the video, so I'm just gonna do the review because it's such a horrible TV show. Tomorrow night I'll be on Jacob Ironside. We're gonna do like a team review of the 1931 Dracula movie with Bela Lugosi. On Thursday I'll be on Roman's channel. We're talking about one of my 2 favorite movies. We never got into my 2 favorite movies are Highlander and Transformers the movie from the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing
1986, bro. Yep. 1986.
The best year for movies ever.
A lot of people say it's 1982. 1982 is the best year for movies.
I went over the list, and obviously my 2 favorite movies are 1986, but there's other movies in 86 that I think Predator is 86 or something. I don't remember.
87.
87. There's a bunch of movies in 86. I'm like, I like 86 better than 82 or 84, or Anyway, I'll be on Roman's channel. We'll talk about Highlander on Thursday. No, that's 2 weeks from now. Highlander's 2 weeks. This Thursday is like I'll be on his show for we'll just be random talking about stuff.
Okay, that makes sense.
And more stuff on Jacob Ironsides next month, but I don't know which ones yet. So.
Okay, cool. All right, so for me, I just want to say the serial horror season is more or less over for me. I did quite a few episodes. I did like 5 or 6 or something. So yeah, I did a Halloween one on Saturday. If you've seen it, check it out. Me and the Golden Age Geeky saw Halloween 1978 for the first time. So we talked about that, and then me and Pops talked about Carrie last week. Great conversation. First time I am on the channel. Great person. I definitely want to do stuff with him again. I did The Exorcist with Alex White Cloaks. Great. He saw The Exorcist for the first time. I was under the impression he actually saw the movie, but he didn't. So it was his first time seeing it. And I think I covered, The Fly with Dred Roberts and American Werewolf in London with Fanzine. So definitely check those out. I may do one more on Friday the 13th with my friend Marty whenever he's available. So that'll be in November. There's still a lot of video content. I do plan to do. I still need to do my edutainment Mario video that I've been meaning to do. Mario's Missing, Mario's Time Machine. Mario teaches typing. That's the reason why I can type is because Mario teaches typing. So, and it's funny. My Legend of the Galactic Heroes anime recommendation did really well in the algorithm, like more than I usually get. So I may do more anime recommendations going forward. So the next one's going to be the show Monster, which is another favorite of mine. So I don't know if you've heard of Monster, Naoki Urasawa's Monster.
Is that the serial killer?
It's the one where this one brain surgeon.
Yeah, I know where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, he saves the life of a boy, and the boy turns out to be, let's just say bad things start to happen around him. And
that was a good show.
That was a very good show. It's I got the first manga right behind me, so definitely another series I think is underrated. It's on Netflix though, but I still think it's really underrated, and I think it needs some more love. So. But that's my next anime recommendation. So, so this is not the last Chillporeal this week. I'm going to be doing another Chillporeal on Thursday, and I have a slight trailer, kind of similar to how I introduced Matt's thing. So, everybody have a good week. Stay safe. Stay Nerdporeal. live long and prosper. Don't say die short and fail like my classmates did to me when I was a kid, because it's cringe and stupid. And just everybody have a good night.
Peace.